I'm going to make sure all our panelists are muted right now because I'm hearing some sound. Just wanted to warn anybody who wasn't muted. Good evening, everyone. Wow, that fabulous music is Saltarello 2 and Trotto 1. Composer is Anon. The musicians are Tom Zajac, Krista Patton, Glenn Velez, Paul Schiffer, and Wayne Hankin. The CD is Tapita, I believe it's pronounced, and you can buy it from the Early Music Foundation. We are posting those credits, and I probably botched them. You know me. Hello, I am Darlene Hamilton, and we are the Historical Tea and Dance Society. We're happy you're with us tonight. On our team, we have Lindsay Verbal assisting with the program. Hi, Lindsay. And on Zoom, monitoring for questions and posting credits and things like that is Reed Wilson. And on Facebook Live, we have Larry Hansen doing the same thing, looking for questions and posting the credits and all that good stuff. So thank you, team. I love my team. Please feel free and welcome to post questions in the chat boxes on both platforms, because we have these wonderful people keeping their eyes open for them. If we don't get to them in the web chat, we will get to them in the after talk. If you signed up via Zoom registration, you will have already received that after talk link. However, we do post it at the end of this web chat, and we've started to post it several times. So make sure you locate where that chat box is. You're going to want to be able to grab things out of there or click on things and post. So do stick around for the after talk. It's really fun and exciting, and tonight will be no exception with our guest, that is for sure. And we get to talk one-on-one, and it's really a lot of fun. So, and of course, thank you to Karen Axelrod and all her fabulous music friends every night for every Tuesday, their in the moment live program. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful. And we love you, and we love getting to know Maisie. And so, yeah, let me jump right into a bio on our guest. Wayne Hankin is a composer, a conductor, a teacher, and most of all, a leading musician on pre-classical woodwinds, which are instruments dating before 1750. He's toured the world and has more than 4,000 performances under his belt. His credits include 8 different productions with Cirque du Soleil, plus many TV shows and films, including The Good Dinosaur, The Lego Movie, and Breaking Bad. Wayne also loves playing for English country dances, which is lucky for us, and has played and taught at many dance camps, including Pinewoods, Berea, Lark Camp, and BACDS weeks. And you will soon see why this is just a small part of what Wayne is all about. And I just want to say, Lindsay and I always have a great time getting to know people, but we love his passion about education, and we're going to hear more about that in his talk. Please welcome Wayne Hankin. Thank you for being with us.
Good to see you all. Hello, Darlene. Hello, Lindsay, and Lawrence, and Reed.
We are going to jump right in because there is a lot to cover. So, thing one, historical instruments in country dance and how it was part of my musical career.
Well, I'd like to take you back. It all pretty much started for me back in 1964. And that's when I got my first musical instrument. It was a soprano recorder. I still have that little brown thing. It was made of wood, and I treasured it. For about 3 years, I was very passionate about it, and then I dropped it for a while. And then about 1970, when I was in about ninth or 10th grade, I discovered something called early music. And it has had the same effect on me today as it did back then. I seem to feel the same way about it as some of the most beautiful music I ever heard, and wanted to be a part of it. So the recorder came back into play, and then eventually I decided in 1974 I was going to make music my career. So I was 1 year into college. I left Ohio and then went to the Hart College of Music, where I got to study with Shelley Gruskin of the old New York Pro Musica. And it was at that time that I started to encounter my first experiences with English country dance, which I'm sorry to say was not a very good beginning. I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm just going to say that what happened was I went to a session. There were not too many people who could dance, and the instruction took about 45 minutes before we started dancing. So you can pretty much imagine how that evening went. And so for a long time, I didn't do English. I was, though, very much attuned to the contra world, which I loved a great deal. We didn't all dance very well back then, but in Hartford, Connecticut, to have somebody like Ralph Sweet come down from Hazardville, Connecticut was a real treat for us because he loved doing singing squares. This was also during the 70s at the time when his instruction included an old English gesture that we never do in English country dance, kissing. So Ralph Sweet would be with his accordion right here, and he'd be, and I mean, clutching it. And he'd go, okay, I want to see a whole lot of kissing there. And we'd do Rory to More. And of course, everyone down the line was kissing each other. This was 5 years before herpes. So at the time, anything seemed to go at a contra. It seemed like a lot of fun. But I was to get converted. And when I went to do my graduate studies at New England Conservatory, I was under the tutelage of two very important dance instructors. But more importantly, the first one's Ingrid Brainerd, who occupied the 15th and 16th century of early dance. But what happened, I was going under scholarship with Dr. Sutton. And Dr. Sutton was really the authority on late Renaissance Italian dance. So I learned a lot about Negri, and I learned a lot about Arbo, which became a very important source because in a certain way we a lot to those very early treatises. They're some of the first where we really have some idea of what they're actually doing rather than looking at pictures and just presuming. And some of the music you'll hear tonight is based, like you just heard, the saltarello, saltare, which means to spring. It was a type of a ballo. Ballo means dance. Anyway, I was at New England Conservatory, and along with me working at scholarship was this rather quiet young woman who was in our history department. And we worked side by side together, but we never said a word to each other. She was that quiet. One night, Dr. Sutton came up to me and she said, you know, Wayne, I think you should go English country dancing. And I thought to myself, oh my God. But I didn't want to disappoint my teacher since she was holding the strings to my scholarship. So I resented very politely and decided to go. And what I saw there was the most extraordinary people that actually could dance. It was the Cambridge Y. And they had an amazing situation. The beginners would work for about the first hour or so, and then the second half of the dance was all done by memory. People would just request things right up on the chalkboard, and they would dance it in calling. So I saw this, and I thought, wow, this is what it's really like. So I've been an English country dancer since. But to add to that story, I was listening to the music, and I noticed up there, along with two very talented violin players and a very fine whistle player in the name of Earl Gaddis, Peter Barnes, and Mary Lee, this pianist who was just, you know, flying on the keyboards as if she had wings, you know, on her hands. And it was quite extraordinary. And I realized that that person up there was the person I'd been sitting at my desk in the history department for 2 months. We had never said a word, and that's my Jacqueline Schwab story. So I don't know if she remembers that. I'm sure I told her that story, but there she is. We had a duo called 3x2, and I was really very, very much touched by her. Of course, she is as vibrant as ever and really one of our great treasures in English country dance. And right now I'm going back and listening to Ken Burns' Civil War, which, of course, any of you know Jacqueline Schwab know that she did many of the Ken Burns documentaries. I mean, she's virtually the signature of those series. So she's a very, very important special artist. So Darlene, would you like to ask me a question or should I just blab on?
Oh, just go ahead and speak on. I know we have a lot of different things coming in for now. I know we have some photos and videos and things. So yeah, let's get to those.
Well, essentially my focus was early music. So I knew a lot about instruments. The field of study for instruments is called organology. And so in order to really be versatile and to make it in the early music world, you had to go beyond recorder. And so I pretty much learned most of the medieval and Renaissance winds that were available at that time. Of course, as my career went on, I ended up expanding beyond winds, but mostly winds is where my territory is. And so what I did when I had left New England Conservatory, by accident, I got an offer to come to Europe, and I worked there for the next 5 years and was able to really experience the places where early music was played 500 years back, playing on some original instruments that existed during the time, and exploring Europe, which of course is a much different culture than America. So I had culture shock when I came back to the States because everything in Europe was compact, little refrigerators, little portions of food. Everybody kept clean. People recycled glass in different colors. This was the early 80s. When I came back, I saw big, huge, hulking people with big grocery bags driving huge cars. And so I thought to myself, um, it made me think of certain things. But one of the things I could not have in Europe was the thrill to dance again. And they didn't have much English country dancing in Europe. But as I did get back into the States in the late 80s, I started joining again. I joined CDNY, Country Dance New York, which had a very vibrant scene. I did my first revels there. And more importantly, I was hooked up with the Contra and English country dancing world once more. So now, through that time, I didn't play. And at the time in the 80s, I wasn't really a composer at that point because I was hoping that other people would write for me and my job was to play and their job was to write. After a while, I realized that no one really understood what my instruments could do, or I really was the only one. So I started to learn composition. So I'm mostly self-taught. I had some teachers, some very good ones, Gerd Hummel in Berlin. But for the most part, it was really a path that I had to go down myself because you had to sort of learn what your instruments could do and how to write for them, and more importantly, learn how to write for other people so that it's easy to convey your message. And so, also at this time, I was working with Meredith Monk throughout the 80s, and the opportunity for me came to orchestrate or work for Houston Grand Opera. That was Atlas, which recently had its revival with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, where I was very delighted and honored to play with that orchestra. And also made my conducting debut back in 1990, Houston Grand Opera, and I conducted. A lot of stories I could tell you there, but I don't want to veer off too much from our main subject, which is historical instruments in country dance and how it was part of my career. I think Meredith was attracted to the fact that I could play various instruments. Now, I presume the next one up is the Grosse Bach. Am I not mistaken, Wednesday? Is that the one we have?
Yep, that's the next clip.
Well, why don't we show that? Because that's what she was thrilled at. And I got to play that in her film Book of Days. And, you can still hear that on ECM, although I think it's more fun to watch the film. This instrument is called the bagpipes. Why? Because it's basically a bunch of pipes connected to a bag of pipes. There's a blowpipe where you blow air into the bag, and it eventually floods into these pipes here, the melody chanter, which makes the melody, and the drones, which provide your accompaniment. So you saw two bagpipes there. The big one was the grosse Bach, which means large ram, which, by the way, is a very interesting instrument because in the earliest pictures we see, it used to accompany dancing bears, which is the origin of the Moscow circus. So back then they were itinerant acrobats and musicians that would have these bears chained up. Of course, we wouldn't do that today, would we? And the second instrument was the Hummelchen, which is the other extreme, one of the smaller pipes, but a rather versatile one. I've used both in English country dance, and so this brings me up now to the point of how I started playing music with country dance. Of course, you learn early what works, what doesn't. I always remember that Paul Ross, who I'm always grateful for, was always the kind of person who could let me know whether I was doing something good or doing something else. And he was very polite about it. So I learned which instruments didn't go and which ones did. Eventually, I started to play and realized that when you're playing several times over, it's nice to mix it up, but you don't want to mix it up to the point where you're confusing the people who are dancing. So it was just a question of adding color. And so I realized I didn't have to lead all the time, which was good. I mean, if you're doing just piano and me, then you have to. You have no choice because you have to drive the tempo. But if you have three people, let's say I have like John Alston on the violin, myself playing, which was one of the first times, and Cynthia Shaw, I remember, was one of the first times I played. John could play, and then I could play, and then he could play. And after a while, I just realized I would never start a piece. And I realized if I could just wait as long as possible when I came in, then it was like a delightful surprise rather than being a soprano recorder coming in at the beginning, then playing 20 times like that. Because especially with soprano recorder, it's very easy to wear out your welcome. So I started realizing the mic could do things for me that I normally couldn't do outside, because when I saw people doing English country dancing outside, they always had the soprano recorder so you could be heard. We didn't have that. You have the mic, you can play anything. You can play the quietest of the quiet. You can play even the loudest of the loud if you know how to handle it right. And so, of course, I started copying certain people who had big successes. If you've ever seen Wild Asparagus play and you see David Cantini whip out his bombard, the whole audience would go crazy. So I basically stole that from him. And, of course, there's a lot of creative stealing. Later on, I am going to talk about stealing when we're talking about improvisation. More importantly, as I got into larger and larger ensembles, it was easier for me to play less and less and be appreciated more and more. So what also had to happen, since I had an early music background, we get into the second thing now, which is preserving traditions. The thing that happened during the 70s during my education was that was a period of authenticity. We were trying to be respectable. There were a lot of crazy organizations saying all sorts of things that really weren't making early music a worthy case. So we had to kind of fight for a reputation. So the best way to do it is read the books, follow the books, be authentic. Don't start doing jazz licks and don't start doing odd stuff. Once we got through that period, which took about 20 years to do, in other words, playing on authentic instruments, not making up stuff and not faking history and creating all of this nonsense, it was then okay to then at that point stretch the boundaries a little. And when I was in ensemble for early music, I tended to stretch the boundaries a little bit, maybe more to Fred Renz's taste. But that Saltarello Entrato that you heard that I played in the 90s was an example of what you can do when you only have a few notes in front of you and where your imagination turns. Of course, that was a very ensemble event. Creative percussion on Glenn and Paul's part, Glenn Velez, Paul Schipper, and Tom Zajac and Krista, who added the other parts. I was the last thing where you hear all the wailing from that. It's not written. And if you really start reading more and more about the history, you'll realize that there's a lot that needs to be filled in. So anyway, we should go into the next example, don't you think? What do we got? So that's what it pretty much sounded like for the last 20 years or so. Of course, you always grow, you learn from people. And the wonderful playing of and Aiden Brodage and Elka Baker. I didn't see who the pianist was. I presume it's John Jensen, who I don't have to tell you how wonderful he is, because he is. And I forget the caller. Can you help me, Darlene, who the caller was?
Sure, it's Barbara Finney.
Barbara Finney.
Yeah,
And that was all done at Berea, which is a very, very special place. And I must say, the dancing's always great. It's so amazing when I look back 30 years ago and you had to, you know, go heads or tails whether the dance was going to be good or not. These days, you can go to a dance and usually there's plenty of dancers who are just simply wonderful. So the other thing I like to show is honoring the tradition and playing things. And the next thing you'll see is an Abbott's Bromley, which was also filmed at Berea. And I'll talk a little bit about playing style after you hear it.
I'm going to come in here for a minute. I
Please
think
do.
we jumped into thing 2 and I didn't get to tell everybody.
Oh, okay. Please do.
I think this is coming into thing 2. So just so all the people what happens is they watch and they look for the marker when they're going back to hear a certain part of it. So thing 2, my education, preservation of traditions.
Thank you, Darlene.
And here's the video.
Okay. This Abbott's Bromley.
Wayne, let me jump in for a minute and ask you, do you know what year that is? We have people wondering.
That was, I think, 2 years ago.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And John Nixon did the photography. So
thank you. Please continue on.
I hope people didn't mind the darkness of the video, but that's, of course, the nature of Abbott's Bromley. And so what I wanted to point out in that video is that I try to make playing it just a tad different every time. So you notice I kind of monkey a little bit with the articulation just to keep it musically interesting. But I don't try to overdo it either because, you know, you have to do one thing, I think, when you're playing any of this traditional music is let the music do the talking. And the best thing you can do is just serve it as honorably as possible. I see some of my wonderful dear colleagues who feel like the only thing they can do to make it better is to ornament everything to death. That's a 16th century notion or a Baroque notion, 18th century. When we play English country dance, we pretty much play it straight and build up, and whatever ornamentation happens afterwards is hopefully in line with what's going on because it's the dancers that need the music, not us. We're there to serve the dancers, not the other way around. Of course, the dancers serve us if they applaud, which I'm very happy to say I've really enjoyed usually the very last few seconds of the dance, because you can hear the audience looking at you and staring at you, and then seeing your colleagues stare at you. And to me, that's some of the finest honor I get. They don't say wonderful one and all that sort of stuff. They just look at you. And I know sometimes if I do something really outrageously wonderful, pardon me if I'm patting myself on the back, and somebody just stares at me and just looks in there like, think, what was that? But it's not the, oh my God, what was that sort of thing. It's what it really is pardon me if I just turn this on and help you out a little bit. Um, it's like, I never heard that before. So there's always new things you can say about old music. And that's the whole thing, is to make it alive. We're not basically a dry little treatise being executed. I saw all that in the 70s and 80s, and those days are over. And thank God, we have such wonderful players in the English country dance and contra world. And they don't need any explanation whatsoever. If you like it, it pretty much is because they brought it to you in a way that makes it special for the evening. So when I think you listen to this next example, if I may, this is a saltarello. And this is an instrument I constantly use in English country dance. You have to find the right tunes for it. But this comes from a film I did called Seven Solos, which won a few awards and actually made a little money on the side, which is very unusual for an independent film. But this is the third scene. This is a saltarello. Again, another saltarello, Saltaire Spring. Here we go. Now that was shot at the Haskell Opera House, and something's very unusual to say. All the scenes that I picked from Vermont, um, it was the way I could get a grant from the Vermont Council of the Arts as well as the NEA. So many of these places, some of them exist, like the Haskell Opera House. Other places don't exist anymore. I don't want to get too much into that, but I just want to say that that particular scene was, well, let's put it this way. Haskell Opera House is the only building that is located in the United States and Canada at the same time. So I was in Canada on the stage, and about third row out is the United States. So the whole film crew was in the United States, and I was in Canada while they were shooting it. So it was an international shoot. Anyway, I think, Darlene, we're on to our next thing. So.
Okay, hang on a second.
All right.
Great. Thing number 3, new directions in education, evolving developments for future curriculums for traditional music.
As you can see, I played a multitude of instruments, and they all take a certain amount of time to, get a finesse and identity with. I, though, could see what the problems were as far as people coming to concerts. It always was an older and older crowd, getting grayer and grayer every year. And I realized that where were all the children? Where were all the young people? I mean, especially an instrument that I loved, which was the recorder. I couldn't seem to understand why there was really nobody taking us over. We were all getting older and we see too many people, young people coming into the early music field at all. It's a little different now, but I'm talking pretty much around towards 2000. Well, before I get into what I wanted to do, I had to leave New York because of 9/11. I had just gotten a house on City Island and everything had to go well. And I was writing an opera and hopefully I was going to get a reading from Glimmerglass. Unfortunately, 9/11 ruined all that. I spent 9 months preparing and it was all for nothing. Nobody wanted to hear anything at that time. And, you know, you don't want to start bleeding your finances. So it was time for me to go. And I got an offer to come to Cirque du Soleil. And there I was. I did 8 productions with them for a few years and got my financial backing. You know, being a musician is always touch and go. You have feast and famine. And so famine came right after 9/11. Feast came during Cirque du Soleil. And so this film that you just saw, Seven Solos, which, by the way, is available. You'll find out where you can get it later on. But this film, Seven Solos, was made with Cirque people. And we had a wonderful director in Jonathan Levin. And I'm very thrilled that once I got back into the world leaving Cirque, I realized what was I going to do. And I wanted to solve this problem. And for a while, I was thinking how I wanted to do it. I had an idea for a television show and never got off the ground. We did, however, realize there were certain things. First, the learning curve for instruments is just too steep. And with people having less and less time and shorter attention spans, something had to be done. So when I was in Los Angeles and working for Dirty and Songbird out at Songbird Ocarina, I realized that that's where all the young people were. They were all playing ocarinas. They're all Zelda people, and they would be playing all these little tunes, very simple things, and they would be go crazy if I played something like that. No matter what instrument it was as if the Beatles had descended on their territory, and they all were just saying, "We're not worthy," and that's the tune, and wow, I thought women would start fainting and the boys would be jumping up and down. That's what was happening. Strange for an instrument that sounds similar to a recorder, but for some reason had all the appeal, whereas the recorder in the school system had, let's put it as mildly as possible, an appeal that didn't last very long. And so I wanted to tap into that. And so this next example you'll hear is the introduction. I believe this is this our March of the Pee-wees, which I used in Mummer's plays when I use it to announce the people.
Yes,
it is.
that's the one.
Let's see.
Well done.
So this is what I came up with. Since I played a lot of instruments, I thought, why not find the simplest one to learn and play on? Here's what you got. So you can imagine that would be a nice little intro for Mummer's play, which we did do. And this brings us up to Jubo. I thought that this was the next mission for me. I mean, I pretty much by this point, and we're talking over the last 10 years, I'd pretty much filled up the resume. There was nothing else to put in there that I couldn't do before. I had an armful of reviews. I'd been doing movies, television, the whole thing. So, I mean, it really wasn't much more to say except that I wanted to solve this problem. How do you get the other 90% of our population to play music. I mean, really think about it. A nation of nearly 330 million people, and only about 28 million play on an active or semi-active basis, most of whom can't read. So it was read, write, compose, and perform. Be able to do that instantly, have an instrument that was simple enough that you could just pick it up, learn a scale in 3 minutes. That's usually what it takes. So you get the idea. So I realized there had to be a campaign because I wanted to go beyond the English country dance community, but also wanted them to be very much a part of it. And thank God I've had Berea and places like Camp where I was able to do it. Chautauqua was also another base, and Interlochen was also very welcome to the idea of starting programs there too.
And wait, let me
Yes,
interrupt for a minute.
please.
I think this is just zooming right into thing 4. So because it is all about thing 4, the Jubo factor.
Oh, very good timing. Thank you so much. Normally I'd be teaching, how to play English country dance and things at workshops, but I think that this is basically a culmination of the background of all the things I did. So needed to develop the instrument that could be pleasing to the sound. And I had to appeal to a much larger audience to bring them into our community. So for example, if let's say somebody of our age, Darlene, and our age would walk by and I want to attract them to that, I would play, sorry. And they go, okay, Andy Griffith, okay, I get it. And then they start talking. If I had a younger person, sort of like Lindsay, I would play. And so, immediately you can hook into a whole group of people if you can speak their language and then slowly bring them into our language. And so the recorder was the thing that was in the way. We had a great opportunity of making recorder a fixture, not just merely introducing the instrument, but having it build the repertory which would lead to symphonic playing. And that really didn't happen. What usually happens is they play it for as long as they can stand, they drop it, and then they just relearn instruments altogether. And they don't really have a lot of skills going into playing orchestral and band instruments. I wanted this to be really a foundation where you could learn your skills quick, like 2 weeks, learn up your basics, be able to do rhythms, play 15 pieces in a matter of that same time period. Matter of fact, the scale is so simple to learn, some people can master it in under a minute, like Sarah Pilser, who holds the record for playing a scale 58 seconds. She touched the instrument, and 58 seconds later, she could play the scale perfectly. Which brings me to 1 minute, because I would like to read from the book. Some of my favorite hobbies is sitting down with a good book. And so this book's called The Jubo Journey. I wrote it because I wanted to make the case why it was important for us to have a new path for easy music making so that we could have more people playing, more musical families, more musical communities. We're all playing together. We're not doing the other things that keep us apart. So I'm going to read from you from chapter 5. It's called A $1 Flute is No Bargain. We see them in dollar stores, usually located in the toy section next to the Cinderella bubbles and the plastic toy pistols. They usually come wrapped in clear plastic and displayed in 2 or 3 colors. They usually look like little flutes, and if you ever pick one up, you may think at first you just bought a musical instrument at a bargain price. You bought it because you thought, if I can just get my child exposed to something musical, then it will increase his chance of playing well later on. But the opposite is about to happen. When you get that instrument home, you may discover either 2 things. A, it doesn't sound very good, or B, it doesn't sound at all. When your child plays the one that sounds not so good, you may tell your child not to play it because it doesn't sound very nice. Not a wonderful thing to tell someone who's starting out in music. Also, if the instrument doesn't make a sound at all, you're going to wonder why something's not happening. If the instrument is not built to do the job right, the child may blame themselves. And we haven't even mentioned all the bad habits you're about to see your child get locked into. If you want your child to learn a musical instrument, chances are you'll do better buying one from a music store. There they sell instruments, not toys. Toys are usually not serious instruments, and at $1, they're no bargain either. When an instrument is well made and a method is well thought out with a repertory creating satisfaction among those who play and hear it, that's a good value. Succeeding in music is a value. Playing on a well-made instrument is a great deal, and when parents invest in themselves and play music with their children, that's priceless. But if you leave your child with a dollar store sound maker for them to figure out, you probably did it to distract your child, not educate them. And what usually happens to those items a year from now, they end on your garage sale table, Goodwill, or your local landfill. That's what we do with things we usually call junk. Children do not deserve junk. They deserve a chance. It doesn't take a lot of money for a decent music education. That's what's needed for school systems that are pressed for money. And when done right, children play well and end up succeeding. You decide what that's worth to you. Thank you. Thank you. So it had to be a campaign because if you're going to broaden the English dance community, and I'm sure we want more people and more people doing the things that we enjoy doing, you have to find a way to bring them in. And so I feel playing instruments is one of the things that will bring them in. And if the instrument's simple enough, and if the repertory fits into the English country dance repertory, then we have a chance. And then they can see, wow, it's not just some little noisemaker that plays a couple little tunes. It can do a whole lot of things. So I believe now we can play a little bit about what Jubo is about because I had to create characters to ingratiate people. And one of the characters I created was Dr. Jubo. And here he is. And you'll get to see him tell you all about Jubo and what the whole system is built upon.
Jubo. Did you ever want to learn to play an instrument but found it too difficult or scary to learn? Well, put those fears away because Jubo's the easiest instrument to play. Within minutes, you can learn to play the scale and sight read on day one by using Jubo Tab, an easy-to-read music notation system. Within weeks, you'll play lots of songs and melodies and compose your own music creations. Just use the tested Jubo methods. You'll have 25 pieces under your belt. With early success, you can go on to play other instruments or play more engaging music with Jubo Rep. Any kind of music, rock, folk, jazz, classical, even video games can be played once you have a Jubo in your pocket or worn around your neck. All you have to do is say yes, and Jubo is your prescription for success. So, why not start today and learn to play the easy way?
So by introducing that character, and when I go to fairs and festivals or workshops or anything like that, and I put on my lab coat and my nerdy glasses and I go, "Hi, I'm Dr. Jubo," everybody starts laughing. And that's what I want them to do. Because then it's not somebody going, "Hi, I'm Dr. Jubo," and then they're all clutching because it's like, oh boy, I don't know much about music and all that. No, they could laugh and then they could freely ask their questions like, how do I learn how to read music? And then Dr. Jubo could tell them in a non-intimidating way because music's a rather intimidating subject. It's so funny when you see people interview various musicians, if it's music that they listen to, let's say like rock or folk like that, the interviewers can't stop talking because so much of their personal experience is tied to that. And, oh yeah, I listened to Dylan when I was a kid, and you see all that. When they get to classical music, it's like, you've been writing music for a long time, haven't you? Yes, I have. And so, it's they're afraid to really ask some very vital questions, which make it even more distant to the viewer because, wow, I guess this is for intelligent people only. It's not for everybody. So I had to create various characters, and later on we'll have a very special guest in the talk session, which I hope will come because he's been converted to Jubo. And you don't mind if I announce who that is. That's going to be Bernie Sanders. He's going to be at the talk session, and he'll tell you all about Jubo as well, because it's really taken him by storm. But there was another person that I got turned on to, Jubo, and would like to talk to you about that a little bit, and that's Dr. Farnaby Fucci, who is the head for the Academy for Infectious Music Making. And so we have a picture of Farnaby Fucci, because I believe we do have him on the line. Darlene, are you there?
I am.
Well, thank you for having me on your program. People ask me what's the present state of things musically speaking. Well, we see new cases in non-musical activity every day. This is a symptom that can be reversed if people decide to take matters seriously and to start practicing good music habits. Some people say, I don't want to wear a Jubo when I'm playing, but I guarantee you that your friends and colleagues will respect you when you wear one. It shows that you care about music making and are not adding to new cases of non-music activity that so plagues our nation. I hate to see such things because the lack of good music information presents a threat that affects all of us. Now, I've been getting letters, people hearing a lot from authorities that one should avoid close contact with Jubo musicians. But music brings close contact with so many people. That's a good kind of contact. You can reach a person's heart and soul by playing. Especially you kids, you are a part of the team of people who are trying to protect music. And we've got to be in this all together. You want to avoid crowds, so if you kids say to your parents, Mom, Dad, I was told by Dr. Fucci that you shouldn't be hanging out in crowds. So if you're thinking about going out to this crowded bar tonight, do me a favor, Mom and Dad. Stay home and let's make some music together.
Thank you for that wise bit of advice.
Thank you, and very much a pleasure to be on your program. So, I'm a character. What can I say? Might as well use it to your benefit. And so, Lindsay, if you could put up the chart, which has the picture of Good King Wenceslas on it. People can look at the Jubo method. If you will point your arrow to the white box on the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that that's where that's the first page they learn. In 3 minutes, they have the scale down. And then they start in the first Jubo 1. And I've seen some kids master 13 pieces and 13 exercises in as little as an hour. It usually takes 2 to 3 weeks. And then Jubo 2, which is a little more challenging. But by then, they have all their music basics down, and they can read because they learn through reading. They start reading on the first day. Now, if you look up in the authentic facsimile corner on your right, you'll see the original tune of Good King Wenceslas. And you can maybe even follow along if I can see those little squiggly lines, not squiggly, just linear. And you see dum, bum, bum, beam, bum, bum, beam. Bum, bum, next line, dum, be, dum. You get the idea. So that's where Good King Wenceslas comes. And if you look down here, and I'll play it while Lindsay accompanies following her bouncing ball, or what do we call it, the little arrow. Etc., etc. So they're reading from the first day, and they're also singing as well, because we like to do that as well. Everything gets connected, and you can see that You can see the Western notation there. It says half note, quarter note, then eighth note above, and you can see its tablature equivalents and its rest equivalents there. And all the information's in the tab, the Jubo tab. In other words, you can get their pitch and they can get their rhythm. That's why they can play this accurately. And you can see all these kids in these pictures. They're all picking up, and they were all pretty much playing after the second or the third day. First day was a little rough, but they got through the first day, and then they were playing. It really helps when you have music every day of the week in school. I hope we can resume that again. Anyway, we're moving on, and before we get to the last section, I'd like you to hear just a few little selections of what Jubo can do, because the first thing you'll hear is a monk playing an Irish folk tune, and the second one is an English country dance, Roughy Tufty. Then I saw three ships, and I think if we have time, we have Cajun as well and Jig for Jenny. So let's go through those if you don't mind. Next is Roughy Tufty. I hope. Let's see.
It's coming.
Here we go. Next, I saw three ships. It's a little movie, only about a minute long. And since we're coming close to running out of time, let's just do one more. So how about Jig for Jenny? Can we skip to that? And that's quickie. I was going to do Cajun, but maybe we can do that in the talk. So I think, Darlene, this comes to our last part, right?
That's right. And it's a good one. And I'm glad we have some time. We might run a minute or two over, but you know us, we don't end exactly on time.
Very
So,
good.
thing 5, the approach to improvisation.
Usually, what I find um, when people ask me, how do you do what you do when you play up there? I had organized a course called Playing from the Top, and that was started at Mendocino back in 2005. I was on school at Cirque, and I wanted to come up with a course that could actually really give you the kind of skills so that you could not only play English dance, but to be able to improvise beyond. So the problem is sometimes when we go and learn improvisation, people say, well, just listen to that person or listen to records, which is the way a lot of jazz people do it and a lot of players do it. But sometimes there are other things in the toolkit that are vital too. And so what I want people to do is be able not only to know the tune cold, but to know what's under it so that they can accompany themselves and improvise properly. So learning chords and being able to understand what chords do, because if you do, you can rarely make mistakes, and then you can start being bold and adventurous. The other thing is mastering rhythms, so that, for example, if I'm playing one note per bar, that's probably easy to do. Then you learn to play 2 notes per bar, 3 notes, 4 notes. And along with that, there's the proper etiquette about how to play with other people. For example, don't be a showboater. Don't go too heavy with the jokes. Of course, we all love Drunken Sailor once in a while, but not, for 20, 30 seconds. Get in and get out. More importantly, how to really read up people when you're playing. You know when you're playing well because people just look at each other. They don't have to tell you, can you play it a little slower? Or, especially when the caller will come to you and they're kind of going, or usually a very good caller, if they trust the band, they'll just kind of go faster, slower. That's all. But if your caller's constantly coming over to you and telling you how to play, there's something going on there. But great players don't really have to talk about it. And when we play, we just look at each other and we just smile and we know that we've done what we've done. Because if we're having the fun factor up there playing, it's going out to the audience, no question, as long as the sound people are doing their job. Don't worry about how it sounds or whether we play loud or soft, anything like that. That's somebody else's responsibility. Our responsibility is to understand each other and know when it's your time to play, when it's not, when it's your time to accompany, when it's time to make melody, and when to keep the melody. Because, if you get too far off it, you're going to confuse the dancers. So it's a service. It's not really a concert. So I just wanted to give those few words because otherwise Playing from the Top is a weekly course, and you would need those few days to do it, to get it in your body. That's all I wanted to say. So
That was great. What a wonderful talk. And I'm so interested in talking to you a little bit more about improvisation when we get into the after talk, because I know you have a lot of other things to say about that. And some of the things that we skipped, we'll get to. There were a lot of questions. And so the after talk is going to be fun. I have to ask you, because no one gets away without answering, what's your favorite dance, or what's your favorite tune? What tune brings you joy?
well, I have to say, Easter Morn
Ah,
is the one that grabs me more than anything else. That's the one you get dressed up nicely. I mean, in other words, you're not dancing that in a t-shirt. And the other thing is that when everybody's doing it, it's so intricate and it's kind of like a beautifully wound watch where you can see all the mechanisms just moving in perfect harmony with one another. That's just a wonderful experience. And when everybody else is looking great, especially at a ball, that tune really rings to me more than any other. My second favorite is Well Hall. And my naughtiest one is Red House, because, you can just really go to town on that. You can chase people all over the place. I really enjoy seeing people like Wendy Graham dancing because she always seems to have this smile that's up to no good. And if you ever met Wendy Graham, she's like the Cheshire Cat of the English country dance scene.
Do you have a favorite tune being a musician?
Well, there are many. It's usually the one that I'm playing at the moment.
Oh,
So
good answer.
it's all good. I can tell you my least favorite tune. I don't know if I brought it back up, but I was looking in Barnes today, and I had asked Kate Barnes, what's her least favorite tune, and I asked this years ago, and it was the Donkey Brays. I don't know. No one ever does the dance, but it sounds like bad Freddie Grofe. It's like that. Yeah, 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 yeah. How's that?
Oh boy. Okay. Well,
Anyway,
thank you.
you're welcome.
And we will talk more in the after talk. So we are posting it. We're going to post it several times because I know some people said they were having trouble finding it because so many people are chatting. You're going to enjoy reading the chat tomorrow when I send it to you because you had a lot of people making a lot of great comments and having a lot of fun. So let me, for now, say thank you to Wayne Hankin for being on our show. Thank you to our Five Things team, Lindsay Verbal in the background, Reed Wilson on Zoom, Larry Hansen on Facebook, along with our helpers, Kara King, Dan Vilter, and Laura Bartok is helping us out now. Thank you, thank you. Colin Hume maintains an accessible index of all our web chats on his website in one place, and we are posting that link. So please go and check out the list of now 45 plus this one soon web chats we have had since March 2020. They are also available on Facebook on our main page and on our YouTube channel. A big thank you to folks who have been sending in donations. They are greatly appreciated. To our guest selected charities and all our organizations and us, because there are operational expenses. So thank you. We are posting the after talk links several times. And the saved chat and I think Wayne had one or two other things that we're going to go into our Dropbox folder. Every guest has a Dropbox folder. We're catching up. It's been a lot of work to stay caught up with everything, but we are catching up and getting things in there. So you might want to check in a day or two and see what's there. Let me just tell you what's coming up next week. We have Gay Pfeiffer, yay, president of CDSS and passionate dancer, noted teacher, et cetera, et cetera. Registration is now open. Coming on Saturday, January 30th, our Jane Austen and Regency era concert on historical instruments. Timely. Join the Piccadillys for a concert, and we are going to have Q&A with the musicians about the music and the instruments they're playing on. We were hoping to recreate as closely as possible that we could in the Zoom world a Regency era concert. So we hope you'll join us for that. It's free of charge, but we are going to recommend donations for our wonderful musicians. It's on Zoom and also on Facebook Live. On Thursdays at 5 p.m., we have tea time. If you want to join in just a friendly hour and a half of chatting, send us an email or drop into our Facebook page, our Historical Tea and Dance Friends page. All right, now I've gotten to the donations. This is the last thing. And Wayne, did you want to say one more thing? Did you want to say something about the donation, your recommendation, the Jubo ad?
Yes, what I'd like to offer is that if you click on the link, you can go into the members section and get a discount, but more importantly, we'll contribute 33% of that purchase. In other words, of the money that you pay for the instrument to CDSS. And so it's all going to the right places, I hope. And more importantly, when you buy the instruments, I'm your teacher there. So you have any questions, you can touch with me and I'll make sure you're playing and flying as well. So take a look. And I want to thank everybody here, especially Darlene and Lindsay, who've been just remarkable and helping me all the way here. And so thank you very much for your help.
Thank you. It's been so wonderful getting to know you, and I'm really looking forward to the after talk. So I'm going to rush us in because it's going to be fun. There's another hour of fun ahead of us. The closing music is a tune you'll absolutely recognize, and it is played by Wayne. And so thank you for this lovely piece of music, and we will see you all in 2 minutes.
All right.